Go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Shayna, Senior Director of U.S. Communities at DataKind. This is the first webinar session in our Beacon series, From Community Data to Coordinated Action. Over the next hour, we're going to introduce you to Beacon, DataKind's new platform for turning U.S. community data into shared and actionable insights. This series and platform is made possible thanks in support and partnership from the Mastercard Center for Inclusive Growth. So here's our agenda for today. We'll start by talking about the data challenge that we heard from organizations and why it's so hard to move from having data to actually using it. Then we'll introduce Beacon and what it does. After that, we'll get into a couple of live demos and walk through a couple of use cases together. We'll be sure to leave plenty of time at the end for any questions. So feel free to start dropping any of those questions as you hear information today in the Q&A section of your Zoom screen. And we'll be sure to record and share the webinar afterwards. So for those of you who may be new to us, DataKind is a global nonprofit that uses data science and AI for positive social impact. We empower mission-driven organizations with innovative and scalable products and solutions to help maximize impact, streamline operations, and optimize resources. We've spent the last 15 years partnering with mission-driven organizations to ultimately help them use data more effectively. So I'd like to start by talking about what we're calling the data paradox. What we've heard is many organizations today aren't necessarily short on data. If anything, there's more of it than ever from different sources: economic data, census data, health, housing, programmatic data, open source. The problem we heard wasn't necessarily access, but disconnection. Data that lives in different systems, formats across different teams. When it's disconnected like this, it ends up becoming noise instead of insights. And organizations oftentimes end up with limited insights, unclear next steps, and even missed opportunities, even though the answers may be sitting within their data. And so that's the gap that Beacon was built to close. So with that said, Beacon did not come out of anywhere spontaneously. It really represents feedback from our partners and the evolution of several standalone tools that DataKind built over the years. Each one focused on a piece of the puzzle, such as our financial inclusion tools, place-based mapping analysis, collaboration tools. Beacon really brought all of those tools together into a multidimensional and shared view of a community. And the point of pulling it together isn't just for visibility, it's actionable insights and decision making. It's about helping organizations identify access gaps, target programmatic outreach, and collaborate with partners, all from a shared foundation of data. And so we built Beacon specifically for people closest to the communities that they're working in. That ultimately means community development organizations, small business support organizations, overall community-based nonprofits, and the cross-sector partnerships that connect them. If your role involves figuring out where need and investment is greatest and how to respond to it, Beacon was designed with you in mind, not just exclusively for data scientists, but for practitioners as well. And so at its core, Beacon is a platform that enables the ability to bring disconnected public and private data sets together for place-based mapping analysis towards coordinated and actionable insights. It has more than 55 public data indicators that are already preloaded into Beacon from various domains such as economic data, health, housing, transportation, and more. It's built with non-technical teams in mind, so you don't need to have an advanced GIS training that you have to go through first. Your organization and partners can work from the same shared evidence instead of duplicating efforts or working from separate data sets. So in practice, here's what that looks like from the economic mobility perspective. For example, you can see where investment falls short, quickly identify areas with under-resourced small businesses, low SBA loan activity, or limited access to capital, all in one view. You can act with precision, so that could mean layering your own programmatic or lending data against local community conditions to prioritize the businesses or corridors most likely to be in need. You can also work together better, sharing and saving your analysis with colleagues and partners using the same trusted data and views so the evidence doesn't just get used once and then lost in a folder somewhere, as an example. And we've heard from partners that while dashboards are valuable, they are also usually static. They show you a snapshot. And so Beacon aims to bring value with shared data infrastructure. It's meant to be a living tool that teams can return to, not necessarily a report to look at once. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn it over to Yash, our platform manager, to walk you through how Beacon looks live with some use case examples.
Thanks, Shayna. I'm going to share my screen
Okay.
and please just call out once. Okay. Once you're able to see the right screen. Do I have you back on the slide?
Yes, I can see your site.
Okay. Wonderful. Yeah. So welcome everyone to Beacon. I'm going to be walking through three use cases today. They represent but do not directly correlate to an exact example, but they're prevalent or they're representative of examples that we've heard, especially in the CDFI and economic opportunity community. And they'll also do a great job of highlighting the different features on Beacon. So even if it doesn't represent the exact question you might be hoping to solve with Beacon, feel free to drop that question in the chat. Come off mute at the end when we have questions. We'd love to explore what that could look like further with you. But for now, I'm going to walk through these three use cases and give you a better picture of what the platform looks like. So to start with, we're going to go with an example. Let's say that I'm a CDFI working to understand or assess a new community, specifically a rural community, in which data might be limited. You might want to identify where are the gaps, in access to resources, where are the housing and transportation gaps in relation to poverty rate, and where might investment be needed the most so that I can target my outreach, target my partnerships, learn more about these communities. And I chose Clarksdale, Mississippi. If any of you happen to be there, throw something in the chat. But if not, you're going to see what it looks like. So what we're going to do on Beacon, we're going to visualize what housing burden, transportation access, or the lack thereof, and poverty rate look like in an example rural geography. We're going to explore that map and identify those areas specifically by census tract. And then we're going to download that map so that if you want to generate a report with it, if you want to share it with a partner, this will show you how you can quickly go from, maybe not being necessarily the technical person on your team to getting an output directly from the platform that can support your community needs and your further conversations. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into the tool itself. Before I show you that example, actually, I want to just highlight that if you have any questions or you're curious more about what the platform does, feel free to check out our documentation. Before you log in, you will be directed to this homepage, and you'll have a couple of guides here and FAQs at the bottom. With that being said, let's go back to our Clarkdale, Mississippi example. And when you log into Beacon, you'll arrive at this landing page here. What this is it shows you a couple of quick actions, which all three of which we'll be going through today in our examples, as well as any saved assets, which I'll be highlighting in other examples later on. But for now, the quickest way to get started with this hypothetical use case is to go to the Map Analysis tab. Once you're here, you'll be prompted to create a new map. And so if you recall, we're looking specifically at census tracts in the area of Clarksdale, Mississippi. In order to get the map to appear, you also want to highlight a couple of those indicators. So you might be curious, what does the housing burden look like? If you search in our list of public data indicators here, you can get a couple of proxies to that. And so we'll be choosing housing cost, the monthly median cost specifically. And once you select an indicator, you'll be able to get the map. This will obviously maybe not directly be in the area you're looking in, but if you search on the search bar for Clarksdale, Mississippi, the map will automatically direct you to that region itself. Great. And so the next step for you to do is you want to explore the public indicators and see what else you can layer to identify those areas in need, right? And so we had talked about housing burden, which we had selected. And so we want to check, do people have access to transportation reliably? That's reported by the CDC Places dataset. And lastly, where is poverty rate the highest? right, in households in that region. So at or below the poverty level. Once you do that and you select all three indicators, you'll notice that the color changes with each selection. And so to better understand what that looks like, you want to scroll down a little bit to our selected data indicators and our legend sections. So these data cards represent exactly the indicators that you have selected. You'll see the year and the source directly from where they were pulled. You'll see what category they belong to, and you can actually even toggle with these sliders a little bit to see and focus in on those areas with perhaps higher costs, higher unreliability in transportation, and even higher poverty levels. And once you do that, even though the shading represents it well, you'll be able to also hover over each section to see what the numerical values are from that source. So let's say from here you can start to generate a map of what census tracts in that area. You know, might have a higher poverty rate, unreliable transportation, and a higher median monthly cost for housing. And so the last step here, as I mentioned, let's say you want to put this information into a slide deck, you want to share it with a partner of yours. You can either download the data or download the map. In this case, you can download the map as an image. It'll be a PNG file. And just to quickly show you what that looks like, it'll be basically a breakdown of your map, your legend, and your data indicators. Yeah, so that is example number one. Again, I want to be flying through these, so if you have any questions, drop them in the chat. Moving on to the next one, we'll be talking about a feature that has been highly effective for a lot of our partners thus far in Beacon. It highlights the ability to upload your own data. So when looking at an area and doing an assessment, it's incredibly important to understand also where you are present in that community if you're already operating within it. So before we jump into that example, I want to share with you a little bit more transparently about how data upload works on Beacon. So at DataKind and then Beacon itself, we are the tool steward, but not necessarily the data owner. So when you upload data, it's only visible to people that you explicitly give it access to. And we'll talk about what that looks like in a little bit. But that data that you do upload is encrypted at rest, meaning you need a specific key to retrieve it. And so it's protected using our DataKind wide our standards for security. And lastly, we'll be talking a little bit about how you can expose people to the data you upload and how you can share it. Pretty much the way it works is it works in teams. And when you join Beacon as a user, you get your own team and you can invite people as three different roles. And we encourage you to choose the role that is of least privilege. So you have viewer, who's someone who can just view the data and can't necessarily modify it. You have contributor, someone who can upload or request sharing themselves. And you have a team owner. So let's say that's someone on your team that you also want to be a steward for the data that you are uploading. And we recommend before any upload to strip the data sets of any PII or PHI and upload only what's required. So even if you have a lot of columns, it's just helpful to reduce it down just as a rule of best practice before sharing with your team. Any questions about that, drop them in the chat. We'll be happy to answer, or feel free to email us as well. All right. Moving along. So we just discussed what it looks like to go to the map for the first time and download public data. Now, what does it look like when you want to overlay your programmatic data, understand where are the gaps, but also where are you not being present and where could you do a better job of meeting partners? So in this scenario, we're going to be talking from the perspective of a small business support organization or CDFI working in the New York City area. And so we're going to be looking at zip codes to identify where are we reaching businesses and where might we be missing them. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with a couple of public layers actually about where small business lending is occurring, specifically where the median amounts are lower. That might be a good area for you to invest time in. Then we're going to upload data that's already been prepared. This is sample data, so you won't be seeing any real data here. That's not open data. We'll be uploading data about the orgs that we support. So we're going to upload them as pins on the map to see where they are and how that overlays with lower lending amounts. And then lastly, we're going to use a wonderful NYC open data set to actually look at real businesses in those areas themselves that you might want to generate a pipeline with, you might want to identify as partners that collaborate with, or just see where there's a larger cluster of certified businesses in the area. And with that, you're going to be able to identify coverage gaps, businesses in high need areas that are not yet reached. And then lastly, I want to share with you how you can make all this work more collaborative as well. We're going to go through what it takes to create a team, invite a colleague, and then share those indicators with your colleagues so that they can also generate the same type of view. All right. With that, we're going to jump right back into Beacon. Nope, to the left. Okay, so we're going to start with a new map. And so you'll notice here there's a feature to save maps. If you move away from it, you will have to click continue and you will not save your progress, but that is okay. So to start out with, we're going to select, again, our boundary first. So we're looking at zip codes in New York City. And then we know that we want to look for SBA loan activity, specifically median amounts. So both for the 504 program and the 7A program. When you go to New York City and navigate to the area that you operate within, you'll get a similar type of map to what you just saw earlier, right? You're going to see a heat map with different levels of shading based on public indicators. In this case, you're going to be identifying areas based on the legend that are in lighter shading areas. So these are lower dollar amounts typically in those zip code tabulation areas themselves. So you'll notice a couple places pop up. If you hover over, you can start to compare those numerical values actually with one another and identify areas, again, similar to the last example that you could start to work within. But for this use case, I also want to highlight what it takes to upload data. So we are going to save our progress basically on this map by saving this map. And so this is going to identify SBA lending in NYC, right? So once you save that map, we'll come back to it later. But first, I'm going to take you to our wonderful upload flow. So when you get to here, you're going to be prompted to upload a file first, right? And so what we're going to do here is start with the orgs that our organization support. We're going to start with the small businesses that our organization supports. And so I'm going to use a sample file again to upload this data. You'll see a quick preview of it. It'll be the information you uploaded. Ideally, it just looks like what you have here, where you have the address, you have maybe an annotation field here, which is the website of those businesses themselves, but it's small, it's minimal, there's no PII, and that's what you want to aim for typically. So once you do that, you'll be prompted to map the data according to the type of geography you are uploading. So you can upload address data sets, but you can also upload additional layers on the heat map. Let's say you identify how many businesses in each county or zip code you're working within. For this example, we want to see pins on the map of small businesses. And so once you do that, you're going to match some of those fields, and there's some prompts to help you figure out what that mapping looks like, as well as that getting started guide on the home page. If you get to there, zip code. Okay. Once you do that, you're going to get actual real feedback on the geocoding of those addresses. So you're going to see which ones have been accepted and which ones, more importantly, are being denied by our geocoder. If you do see something like this, there's a chance that there are some special characters, there's some weird spelling of something, and so we encourage you to research this field. If you feel like this is an address that should be searchable, go ahead and back to our map and actually put it in the search bar there in order to see whether it should be geocoded properly or not. We use the same tool for geocoding as we do mapping. In this case, you can see how there's some special characters here that make it like a little bit difficult to understand. So maybe you go back to your original data set, you choose an address here, and you upload that for visual purposes. But for now, this is what your geography validation will look like. When you go further, you'll be prompted to either create new indicators or update them. So let's say you're getting new information monthly from your clients, your small businesses, you might want to update that data set on a regular basis. For now, this is a subset that is, again, sample from that NYC open data set. So I'm going to put some small businesses we support. It's going to ask you to map a couple of things to both validate the data and then add it so that's organized well on the site. You're going to add your website as your annotation. You'll see why in just a little bit. Once you validate that, this is actually your validation for the data itself. We are doing addresses only, so there is no data there. If you want to include a numerical value for pins as well, you can do that. And then finally, your upload will be successful and you can get started. If you want to just see what those pins look like first and foremost, you can navigate to the area that they should be represented in, and look at that. These pins represent those addresses or those small businesses that you or your organization has already supported. And so in purple, you'll see the address as well as the website, which you added as an annotation to see, where in that area they are. Now, the key with this use case is we want to see both where there's less lending and where we operate within. right? And so if you remember, we're going to go back to those saved maps. We're going to take that saved map we just did 3 minutes ago, and that'll take us back to these layers that we already added. Once you have this view, now you can go back to your uploaded data indicator section here, and you can actually add that indicator that we just created. So now you can layer on top of the map as well, where you support businesses already. And so you get a good chance, okay, are we actually meeting people where there's already less lending? How do we support businesses that are in areas that are, have a lower dollar amount typically? And then the last step I'll just show here. So if you want to go even one step further, I did preload another data set. I won't take you the upload flow for that, but the NYC Open data set also has a list of SBS certified businesses. And if you add that as the final layer to our map, you now get a picture in yellow pins of businesses that are registered by the Small Business Services of New York City, with their website as well too. And now you can identify, okay, not just where is there less lending, that's number one. Two, where are small businesses that we're already supporting, and are we doing a good job of covering those areas already? And then number three, are there businesses that we can already start to create a pipeline for or start to reach out to see if they require or would like any additional support? So in 3 steps, after you've uploaded all this, you can get that view. Obviously, you want to save your progress. And so that is what I'll go through quickly next. So once you save that map, now that map represents all these public and private indicators. But of course, you want to share this with your teams, right? Let's say you have a great pipeline tool and you want to share it with your program officer to do some outreach. You want to go to your team settings. And so everything in Beacon is set up by teams, all of the saved maps, all the indicators. So when you create assets, you want to make sure you're creating them to the right team. For this scenario, we're going to talk through quickly what it looks like to add a team member. So in this case, I'm going to add my colleague Shayna, and hopefully she accepts my invite. But you'll notice here that there is 3 roles. As I mentioned earlier, you can add them as viewer, contributor, or owner. Each one is rolls into a higher list of privileges that you get. We're going to invite Shayna as a team owner because I trust her with this data. And once you do that, she'll be getting an email that she does not have to accept live on this call, but essentially it'll invite her to be part of the team. Now, the last step to making sure that she can also see a view like this, you want to share that indicator with her. So if you go to this tab for indicators here on the left side, you'll see all the indicators that we have uploaded to this team. You'll see by default, they are not shared. Again, we want to keep this as minimally privileged as possible. But once you do have a data indicator that you're happy with, this last one here that we just created together, you can go ahead and share that. And so the next time that Shayna logs in to the map, she can actually go and choose that indicator herself. She can recreate the map herself, and soon to come, she can even see a map shared with that I can share with her after I've saved it. So that is example number 2. In general, I just wanted to show you a couple of the features on Beacon, but more importantly, how public and private data can come together on Beacon to quickly generate a collaborative environment for insights. All right. With that, I'm going to go back to the slides real quick and do our third and final use case before we allow for some time for questions, discussion, and additional insights from Shayna. So in our third example here, let's say you are a policy or advocacy manager at a statewide CDFI network and you're preparing for meetings with members of Congress or a committee of folks that collaborate on policy research and advocacy. So your question that you might be asking is, which congressional districts have the greatest need for expanded access to small business capital? And how can I start to create an evidence base? Perhaps I have a data or a research team. How can I start to prep them with the data needed? And if you've worked with public data, you know that public data is not always the easiest to work with. The way it's written, the metadata you get, the way you can standardize it, whether or not it's even available at congressional districts. And so luckily at Beacon, we do a lot of the work there to standardize this data. And so you'll get a chance to see what it looks like if your direct goal is not to generate a heat map, but you want to work with all the wonderful public data that we have cleaned, validated, and standardized. So in this case, I'll be prepping a data set actually from Beacon that I can create for my data team to create some evidence to bring to those discussions and specifically answer those questions. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using the dataset builder flow. Those who may have seen a previous product of ours, Economic Opportunity Datascape, you might be familiar with what this does. But if not, we're going to use it to download pre-standardized data from SBA lending, so specifically medians and the number of loans in those congressional districts, as well as key community indicators. So we're going to just download a list of indicators, including poverty rate, household income, and unemployment. We're going to limit that potentially to the congressional districts within the state of North Carolina, or look at it nationally. That's your prerogative. And then we're going to download that as a data set and see what it looks like to actually get a CSV file, as well as a data dictionary that highlights and directs you to the source of the data itself. And so it kind of shifts the narrative from, okay, I need a data team in order to prepare and standardize this data to I can do this today because Beacon has already ingested these indicators. So without further ado, we're going to go back to Beacon. If you look here in the data section of the side menu, you're going to see the Dataset Builder tab. And once you go here, you'll be prompted to start with a geographical boundary. Again, that is kind of core to how Beacon workflows operate. And so you want to identify, okay, congressional districts is how I work and my research team works. So we select that first. You can download data other boundaries, but for this example, we're going to do congressional districts. Next, you're going to select your geography. And so I know I had mentioned the state of North Carolina, but perhaps we operate close to Virginia or South Carolina. Perhaps we want to compare different geographies to other congressional districts across states. So because it's not really too much of an issue with the number of rows here, we're actually going to select this option to select all the congressional districts in the US. And last but not least, we're going to select the data that we want. You can select, from this list of over 55 indicators. It depends based on what boundary you're looking at, actually. So congressional districts is more closer to 40. But that being said, we're going to try to download all the proxies to small business lending, including what's reported by the SBA. So all four of these indicators, two for each program, the median amount of a small business loan, and then the number of loans themselves. And then we want to get some information on the communities themselves and the congressional districts to see how they compare in that regard. So we're going to download household income, which median household income. We're going to download poverty level, so households below poverty level. And last but not least, we're going to download how many folks are unemployed in that congressional district. So those might be some starting indicators you want. Again, if you want to go back and select more, you can totally do so. And the next step after you make all those selections is to actually preview your data. So you want to give you a chance to visually validate that the data that you're looking at is what you in fact want. So you'll be able to go through a sample of, I think, about 10 rows of what your data set will look like. You'll get a chance to make sure, okay, I'm getting the right information I want. Oh, this data is actually the number of loans, not the average amount or something, right? You can kind of verify that this is the data you want. If not, you can go back and reselect that there. But for now, you can go to the next step and you can download that as a zip file. Now, I already showed you pretty much what the CSV file will look like, but there's one other addition to that data zip file that you will get. There's another CSV called the data dictionary file. What that is basically a snippet of this link here, which highlights the direct source, description, the link to it, what year it was published, what year it was collected, update frequency, all this information about the individual indicators that you selected. So if you select 7 indicators, you should have 7 rows describing exactly what those columns or indicators are in your data set. Yeah, and so what that allows you to do, allows you to take it offline, work with your policy, your research team, identify congressional districts of focus, start to build an evidence base, and do the wonderful advocacy that is needed in the economic opportunity in CDFI space. Yeah, I think that just about covers it. So I'm going to go back to the slide deck and hand it back over to my colleague Shayna to go through some use cases.
Thanks so much, Yash. Y'all give me a second. Let me make sure I pull up the right screen. Can you see my screen, Yash?
I can, yes.
Okay, perfect. So Yas walked us through some use cases specific to support of small businesses, advocacy as an example. There are other use cases as well, some that we're working on with partners at this time. And our series that's occurring throughout July will also cover these in more detail. So you will see some examples of how organizations are thinking about using Beacon from a philanthropic perspective, health, legal aid, and housing as well. So with that in mind, that does bring us to our Q&A. We'd love to hear any questions that you may have about the platform, and we'll work through those that come through. So there should be a Q&A option on your Zoom screen if you do have any questions, and we'll take those now. And we'll give everyone a minute to reflect as well. In the meantime, Yash, I'm thinking of common questions we've heard in the past. What are the geographic boundary levels available in the Beacon platform for someone to do an analysis for?
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now on Beacon, from the map analysis page, you can access data from, I guess, 5 different geography types for boundaries. You can get county, congressional districts, zip code tabulation areas, and census tracts. You can also get address indicators. Those are only ones that you upload. There are no public address indicators. And then for ability to upload data, you have pretty much all of those minus congressional districts. You can upload data at county, at census tract, zip code tabulation areas, and then of course addresses as demonstrated.
Thanks. Let's see if there's any questions. None at the moment. Let's see. Oh, there's a
There's
question that
a
has
few.
come in. Thanks so much, Trisha. There was, I think you may have put your questions in the chat. Apologies if I missed that. There was a question around if there's a way to search for indicators. And the answer, I'll start off. The answer is yes. Yash, I don't know if you want to toggle back and share that visually. I'll give you the screen share back.
hmm I can do that. Back to my screen. Okay. Yes. Shayna, do you want to give a voiceover? I click around.
Yes, so we can go to the map analysis. We can start there, I think, in terms of pulling up a couple of indicators. And I think there's a way, once you select the geographic boundary, there's this the search bar right there above. So certainly there's the drop down option that Yash is hovering over each domain. But if you do in fact know the indicator that you're looking for, there's the search option available there as well. So great question. There's another one. Does DataKind collect any of their own data, or is the team more focused on cleaning and combining existing data? Great question there. So the platform comes preloaded with public data sources. That's what we have currently within the platform. And then, as was mentioned earlier, if an organization utilizing Beacon wants to upload their own programmatic data specific to an analysis question that they're looking at within their community, they would be able to do so. So in regards to DataKind collecting any of their own data, we don't have that per se, but we embed the platform with public data sources that we get feedback from our partners on what's relevant and helpful to them in their place-based analysis. Yash, anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, that's totally correct. We do not collect or publish any of our own data, but we do offer data sets that aren't typically available at certain boundaries. So we do have a wonderful data engineering team who also standardizes and translates that data. So let's say it's collected at like census tract level, it might be able to roll up to county, and there's some methodology that we use to do that. That's pretty standard. So there are some data sets you might be able to see. We also do geocoding. So as you saw in some of the activity, the median amounts for SBA loans and the number of loans, those are aggregates of more transactional reporting. So there's data sets there that are not net new data sets that are published, but you can access data that you might not be able to easily get yourself otherwise.
There's another really good question. Is it possible to find data by boundaries other than the four you offer? If I'm understanding that question correctly, those boundaries that were named are the only boundaries available in Beacon from that zip, county, census, congressional perspective. We certainly recognize, like as an example, I live in the Atlanta area, so we have another boundary called NPUs, neighborhood planning units, that communities also look at as a boundary. So we recognize that may be different across the US. And so with this being a national tool, we focused on the four that are common in terms of that place-based analysis. Yash, anything you'd like to add to that as well?
Yeah, I think that that pretty much covers it. Those are the main ones that we have focused on for this iteration of the platform. But certainly, if you feel like there's a use case or you want to explore what that might look like, come speak with us. We'd be more than happy to talk about it.
Okay. Great question so far. And looks like we'll see if there's any others that come in.
Shayna, there's one more from Trisha actually in the
Okay.
chat that I want to make sure I address. The question is, does Beacon provide technical help on formatting data for uploads and adding latitude and longitude if needed?
Hmm.
I can answer this one unless you'd like to
Yeah,
go
please
first.
do.
Yeah. Yeah. So Trisha, we've designed and actually recently redesigned the upload flow to be a little bit easier for self-service purposes. That being said, if you do have questions and feedback, you can always send it to the team. We can even work on scheduling a call if there's, a discussion to be had there. I will also just note if you go to the main homepage and go to the Getting Started section, there is a step-by-step guide and best practice list for uploading data, including how to minimize it, how to watch for punctuation, how to name columns, things like that. Traps that folks often fall into and have shared with us already. So I would point you to that resource, but again, if you feel like there's a conversation to be had, we can definitely do that. And latitude and longitude are actually not fields that we require you to upload. They are generated after you add an address, and then we will map that to a latitude and longitude for you. Hopefully that answers your question. If not, drop another one in the chat.
Great questions. There's another one that came up as well. Can Beacon be used to provide indicators by custom service area? So, as an example, a user uploads a set of zip codes and gets a customized view of the indicators regarding the communities that they serve. So, again, fortunately, if I understand that question correctly, a user would be able to upload. Data that they have aligned to the geographic boundary that they're looking for. They would be able to see that in that mapping analysis. And again, one of the benefits is being able to bring those data sets together into a shared view. So a user can do that. They can then see it against a public data set, or even if there's a sector collaboration or cross-sector collaboration, there could be that ability to be able to see what that information looks like as well. Yash, anything to add to that?
Yeah, if I'm understanding the question correctly, it's like how can we look at data just based on like in this example, zip codes that we've uploaded to? I would echo what Shayna said. I would also just say there's not a clear way to distinguish the public data to zip codes that you want, but there is sort of a neat workaround if you wanted to try it. Like you can upload the data based like only limited to the zip codes that you have. You can go to the map once you add those layers you want and filter on those toggle slide bars to ones that only have values. And that will actually remove the coloring for a lot of these zip codes that might be noise to your visualization, if I'm understanding that correctly. So not an exact way to get around to it, but give that a shot. Drop a feedback if you feel like it's not working or you have any questions.
Great questions coming in. We definitely have time for any others that come up. Oh, okay. So we've got another question coming in. They may have missed this. Is it possible to share maps that are interactive rather than static for the viewer or user? Yash, I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, thanks, Shana. So the answer is not right now, but soon to come. So that is one of the features that we identified, very quickly when we started adding and working with folks on collaborative features, that since we have this ability to save maps, wouldn't it be nice to share an interactive map with someone? So that is actually in active development right now with our team, and should be, live soon. And we can, if you want to message us and just stay in touch with when that feature is there, we'll be happy to reach out to you when it is, but soon to come. And that will be through the same methods that I shared about sharing indicators. So if you share a map, you'll be able to share that with your team members, and certain team members can view, upload, or create one, and then share it with other people as well. So you have the same kind of permission set there as you would for indicators. Great question, though.
Yeah. I'll ask one that we've also heard. Yash, if you wouldn't mind sharing what the typical journey of a Beacon user has been. It's making me think of feedback we've heard where most users, they sign up for an account, they initially start with the public data and sort of, gets a chance to explore just seeing what the visualizations can be of a public data and then going to that next phase. So would love to hear your thoughts in terms of how people have typically started off using the platform.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, the way you described it is a great start. I would say, I'm sure, and this is what I've heard, like a lot of folks use many data tools. And every time you're starting with a new one, you want to get a feel for what it looks like, how it works, start to play around with the map. So that's what we would encourage you to do first. Obviously, check out the resources and the guides that we provide. But if you want to get started, the best way is to start with those public indicators. You can populate them immediately. You can start to play around with the map, get a feel for what creating the right heat map is for your use cases. The next step after that, if you identify, okay, there is programmatic data that we want to combine, is to go ahead and try that upload flow. Start to get feedback on your data set, in a self-service way from those validation steps. If you feel like there's a breaking point and you're not able to get past it, use that feedback button, let us know. We'll work with you to see how your data can best be uploaded, or how we can, work with you to get it up there. And then once you feel like you have a good sense yourself of how Beacon works to combine public and private data, that's when we would also encourage you to think about teaming functions. So one of the biggest, pretty much a lot of people that we work with and partner with, like, we recognize working with this type of data is a collaborative ecosystem, not necessarily your own. Doesn't mean it has to be. And so there might be folks on your team sitting next to you at work who might be interested in the same kind of visualizations you're creating. So even if you feel like you just want to share the map with someone, or you got a really cool insight from something, use the teaming function, invite someone, and pretty soon, and then after that, I think the next evolution is once you have a couple of people who are working on Beacon, and you have a real team of uploaders, of data updaters, visualization creators, then you can actually think of it as like a shared data ecosystem, which is kind of the next, bit after that. Yeah.
Thanks, Yash. There's a really good question about around scoring. So can Beacon be used to create a need score with custom weights per indicator? So as an example, indicator number one has a 25% weight, indicator two, three, so on. So can users assign weights to the indicators that they upload?
Yeah, great question. At the moment, the goal with Beacon, as Shayna has mentioned, is to make it very accessible to non-technical users. And so at the moment, just purely based on where the platform has come from, you cannot add custom weights to specific indicators. When you create three or more indicators, you'll create that, general index. It'll weigh them evenly, from my understanding, and there's not a way to customize it. But reach out to us if that's something that really speaks to you and you have a use case for it. Like, we can think about it together and figure out how to get that available.
Yeah, thanks, Yash, so much. Any other questions? Looks like we got another one. Great question. Do all data sets need to include complete street addresses to be uploaded, or can GIS code be used? What if neither exists, but I want to map points by boundary?
Great question. I will speak to what I understand it to be. So when you right now, if you add an address field, for example, right, I believe you need a combination of a few fields. You need the street address, the zip code, and I forget one other field. It's in our Getting Started guide. But that is needed to get a geocoded point or pin onto our map. Now, as far as whether you can upload a GIS code or whether you want to add points by boundary, that is something I can work to circle back to you on. If you want to shoot us a message with your email address, we can get back to you on that matter. Um, but at the moment, that's my understanding of how you can best add an address indicator. Great question, though.
Yeah, really good one. Great. We'll give a few more seconds for any other questions that linger or come in. All of them are great. I'm trying to think through any other common ones that we've seen come up. I think there's been questions in the past, Yash, just emphasizing between like aggregate info and thinking about going back to, the data that's uploaded correlating to a specific analysis question and making sure that PHI, PII is removed, but ultimately where a lot of the information comes in aggregate form. So anything you'd like to add to that in terms of what to think about when uploading data, kind of reinforcing those points?
Yeah, absolutely. So as we had mentioned in the presentation a little bit, that data is encrypted, rests in our data store. That does not mean, though, that you cannot accidentally still upload PII or PHI. And so we encourage you really to take a look and make sure you're also understanding the licensing of the data that you're using. So even if it's not your data, or even if it is your data, make sure you check with your legal team, with the organization who published it, to make sure that you have the right to upload that even to a private platform like Beacon. And then, yeah, secondly, minimize as much as you can. So remove any columns that aren't needed. You can take a look at the upload guides to make sure that you're getting what you want, and then you can trim any excess for that data set to make sure you're uploading only what's needed. And then, yeah, make sure as much as you can you're working with aggregates, right? I mean, obviously the pins can represent individuals or organizations, but make sure but when you're working with boundaries and heat maps, make sure you're thinking about it in terms of aggregates as a best practice there. Um, yeah, that reminded me of another question folks typically ask. Oh, yes. Okay. Before we dig into the last question there, I think a question that folks ask, which we didn't highlight, is that on Beacon, the public data is committed to be updated every 3 months, every quarter, pretty much. So the data you'll be looking at any given time should be no more stale than a couple of months. Most of the data that we work with is yearly published, but there are some that are on a monthly cadence or just more frequent than a quarter. So just make sure you check in, email us if there's an update that you want to see, and we can work to prioritize it. But that's kind of what the platform commits to.
Great point, Yash. And that's specifically for the public data that's already preloaded into Beacon. There's a great question. Is there a user forum where people can collectively vote on which indicators they would like to be able to access through Beacon? We don't have a specific user forum on the platform, but we do have a feedback button. So if there is a public data indicator that you think would be valuable to the platform through a particular use case, there's always that ability to submit that to through the feedback button that's available on the platform. We do engage with our users to gain that understanding. But as far as like a specific user forum structure, it's really more so through that feedback button.
Yeah, I will also just add that if you do submit a request like that, that you add any extra context that you can. It always helps to understand what the use case is. We try to cater the right set of indicators for our use cases. And so the deeper that we can understand the problem you're trying to uncover, the reason that data is important, the more we can get to the root of how to best add it, as something on our platform.
I
But if you
also,
do feel like it's something,
oh,
oh,
go ahead, Yash. Sorry.
if it's, if you do feel like it's something that you want on the map, that's where the upload feature always comes in handy. Again, limit the data set to what's needed, upload it, and you can actually see that indicator as long as it fits into one of our boundaries or addresses.
And I just realized rereading the question, it could come, I think, from potentially two different perspectives, one we just answered, but also if you're thinking about accessing an indicator through a team structure, that essentially would need to be delegated by the team owner. So there is not a, to my understanding, I don't think so, Yash, like there is not a way for a user to make an in-platform request to access an indicator that's been privately uploaded. But if there is, like, if you are a part of a team that's collectively working on an analysis through a community view, those permissions would likely come through the team owner or the person that uploaded a data set. They would have to specifically grant access there. So I wanted to acknowledge if that was the other lens in which that question might have been asked as well. Okay. Great. Such good questions. In the interest of time, we'll move forward. We definitely want to invite you to start to explore Beacon. It is available. You can sign up with a free account at explorebeacon.org. Also, if you know of a colleague or a partner that you're working with that may be interested in attending the July series, we have an additional one next Wednesday, July 8th, and then July 15th. Feel free to share the registration link. Also, contact us if you have any questions beyond what you heard today. Feel free to reach out to us. If you think you have a use case that you would like additional support from our team and thinking through how that may look through Beacon, feel free to email us. We're happy to have those conversations. We're in active conversations with organizations now on that. And like I mentioned earlier, our sessions will continue July 8th and 15th, and we'll talk about how Beacon has been used in other domains as well. And then finally, with the recording, we'll be sure to send out the recording. We're going to aim to actually post it on YouTube so that it's always available to be able to access and share as well. So thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time and all of your thoughtful questions. And we hope you'll come back next Wednesday, July 8th, to join us. Thanks, everyone.